Maybe holding this in the courtroom is a bad idea. Excuse me, may we please settle down in here?
Among Us.
Right. So, how are we gonna be doing this?
Hush!
I'll be getting to that. First, I would like to begin by saying welcome to this 100% serious debate about video games. I figured since the Game Awards are less than a month away, now would be a superb time for this debate to take place. Yeah, we'll decide the objective best choice for Game of the Year. Since all the Game of the Year candidates are chosen, that means this debate will be more, condensed? Is that what you'd call it?
Good enough. Basically what you're saying is that since the game's already chosen, it means we'll keep this debate to a couple options.
Right. Well then, without further ado, I shall go first. I'll cast my vote on what is clearly the best game of these five, a Mammithian game.
Overselling it much?
I should be surprised, but somehow I've been expecting
any
future year. Then that game is Elden Ring, From Software's tarnished masterpiece. Wait, wrong script. Elden Ring. Actually, I'm not that surprised. You come off as a Souls player. I'll take that as a compliment. It's not. Well then, Mr. Video Game, who are you voting for? I highly doubt it can compete with my Candide.
I don't think that's what Candide means.
Well, since you people got poor taste, it's up to me to teach you nincompoops what a real game looks like. I'm giving my vote to God of War, Ragnarok. Really? I'm shocked you even had time to play it. It came out like a week ago. Well, unlike some people, I'm not busy procrastinating poorly animated videos. Hey, at least this video is... well, at least it came out before the Game Awards.
Truly amazing. What a great feat. Wow.
Thank you, thank you. I already know I'm good. Why do I always end up the straight man in these videos? Because your voice is annoying. Ergo, you're lame.
I have to say, he's making a pretty convincing argument.
Oh, right. Spamton, I forgot to ask you. What's your pick?
Easy. My pick is
Stray.
Stray as in the funny walking cat sim?
Yep. It's easily the best game ever made. Stray sweep, stray sweep,
I somehow
stray
regret
sweep,
inviting
stray
you to
sweep,
this.
stray sweep.
I think his opinion's fair enough. Honestly, I've heard plenty good about Stray. I think we can peacefully resolve this debate amongst
Sus among
ourselves.
us. Sus, imposter, sus among us.
Haha, wow. So funny. So among. Anyhow, how about Tick starts? He'll make a point. We'll try to refute it to the best of our abilities.
Let's do it.
Wonderful. I suppose I'll begin by bringing up the most obvious point. Elden Ring is simply the most finished out of these games. It is the most refined. As such, it only stands to say that this is the best game out of these three. I'm not going as far to say either of the others are unfinished, or poorly made for that matter. It's simply that Elden Ring is much better when it comes to just the overall quality. Hold on. You're seriously claiming that Elden Ring is a finished game? Elden Ring didn't even release finished. I mean, the reuse of assets, lackluster rewards, odd movement system, it all reeks of unfinishedness, in my opinion. I would argue it is unforgivable to release a game in such an early state of production. I mean, Cyberpunk 2077 was buried in the ground for releasing so unfinished. I don't think it was okay when Cyberpunk did it. I don't think it's okay when this game does it.
In 2077, the only crime is getting caught.
I recognize these issues, but I would still argue that while Elden Ring had a shaky and rather janky release, in its current state, Elden Ring is more than finished, especially when compared to a newly released game like God of War Magnum Cock.
But what about Stray? Stray is the best game ever made. You dare suggest that
Elden Scrolls
is more finished than the cattest game ever made?
Well, yes. Yes, I am. Well, if you could, care to get into specifics? I'm a bit confused at what you mean by finished in this context. Are we talking like glitches, gameplay, overall quality, or something else entirely? That is a fair question. In this case, finished is mainly referring to gameplay quality. While I think it's difficult to directly compare GOWR and ER, I do think that Elden Ring's gameplay is much smoother. God of War, whether it's patched in the future or not, simply has a rather iffy combat system, based on what I've seen. Hitboxes are wonky, some attacks that miss your model still count as hits, and higher difficulties have learned nothing from the complaints that 2016 had received. I see what you're saying, but I'd also argue that Elden Ring had issues to the same caliber, if not more, than God of War Ragnarok. Especially in the late game. Bosses combo mambo you into the sun like they're playing a fighting game, while you're stuck with the same old Dark Souls moveset. It leads to unfair situations where the only option is to play defensively, lowering the player's ability to play how they want. Eh? Well, I hate to do this to you, but Uno reverse.
Wrong answer.
Oops, wrong card. Uno reverse. The moment passed. Right. But in all seriousness, I can turn this argument right back to Sodden Horror Regnasmach. The game rewards a heavily offensive playstyle, switching between weapons at a breakneck pace, and using attack that heals one's health. Wouldn't you argue that this is equally reductive as Elden Ring's defensive playstyle?
If I may, hop right in.
Go right ahead.
I would say that an action game like
God of War Ragnarok
can get away with rewarding a more aggressive playstyle, since it is an action game. It is simply a perk of the genre to reward a certain kind of play. But for Elden Ring to restrict playstyles as a
role-playing game,
it is a fault of the game to restrict playstyles, as RPGs are meant to give players more freedom. So encouraging players to play a certain way in a
role-playing game
is a negative, but not for an action game like God of War
Ragnarok.
That's a very good point, Spamton, but shouldn't you be saving these points for Stray?
Yeah, we got time to argue. No need to rush it.
A counterpoint. Did you happen to watch my video on Elden Ring by chance?
No, I exclusively watch infomercials.
Why am I not surprised? Because it's Spamton.
Anyhow, Clockhead, you got no counterpoint?
Well, not for that specific point. I actually find myself agreeing with you. A dangerous notion indeed, but I will concede on this point. Well then, got another point for us to debunk? Well, give me some time to think. I'll allow you to make some points for your game while I ponder. Aight, let's do this. God of War, lame old snot. Ragnarok is a much different beast than Elden Ring. While I do see the appeal of a more gameplay-based game like Elden Ring, I'd say that story-based games such as God of War are more often than not given awards more often than their gameplay-based counterparts. I think more people enjoy a good game if a good story is attached to it, you know? Elden Ring's a good game, but God of War is a good game with a good story. I expected more from you, Bleck. Let us try to remain more objective in this completely subjective debate. That was at best an opinion piece. There is no precedent for story-based games being better than non-story-based games. Objection! In terms of actual quality, non-story-based games are just as likely to be good as story-based games. But for the Pacific Game of the Year awards given out during the Game Awards, they're a much different beast. Story-based games have historically taken the cake 6 out of 8 times. So from the Game Awards perspective, story-based games are, in fact, at an advantage. Sekiro has won the Game of the Year award, and it, as with all other Souls games, has an amazing story that requires a rather deep look into to understand. I've not played Sekiro, but based on what I had seen, I would argue that Sekiro has the most simplistic and straightforward story out of all the Souls games that I had seen, especially compared to the monolith that is Elden Ring, which is, to be completely honest, merely a skeleton of a story. Everything's implied, with no sense of actual time frame or events. It's implications of story, but no real substance. You just don't understand the story. I hate to use such an insulting argument. I do not think you are a fool by any means, but you need to understand the expert subtlety that Elden Ring conducts its story using. You have to actually investigate and think to understand the story. That is precisely what makes the story so good in Elden Ring.
MF.
We'll say that
From Software
games have expert storytelling. When you kill a boss and he goes, "Sumibo, forgive me!" and some
Respectful Gen
makes a 2-hour-long video explaining why this matters. It does not.
Yeah, not to mention, even if this wow, so deep story is really there, you really think that the judges are going to even pay enough attention to notice that story? Well, you'd really hope they would. I mean, I would, if I were judging.
I think the 2020 Game Awards want to speak with you.
Don't even get me started on that dumpster fire. Though, on that topic, I think it's another good example of a gameplay-based game that got snubbed. I mean, if Doom Eternal didn't win, do you really think Elden Ring's gonna? Well, maybe you could... Alright then, Mr. Game of the Year. Your points so far are good, but...
Peak fiction.
Hush. I wanted to get your opinion on the finale. I have heard that the pacing in God of Kor, Thor's cock, is rather poor. I would like your opinion on this. Well, sure. In my personal opinion, God of War Ragnarok has a shaky ending, but I wouldn't go as far to say a bad one. There are rush moments that go on for far too long, but I still feel like it's salvageable. It's good enough to have Ragnarok take the cake. It's not terrible, but I recognize it's flawed. In the time it has taken to say that, I've taken the time to watch a YouTube video of the ending at 10 times speed. Overall, I disagree with your statement. So you think the ending's good and recognize God of War is the better game? No, I am thinking the polar opposite. The ending is beyond flawed. I would call it a dismal excuse of an ending to a rather mediocre game. I hate to be so rude, but I feel rather strongly about how mediocre Rod of Thor, Cum-Filled socks ending. I would say my most major complaints being the odd deflation of tension, scenes going on for too long or too short, and major plot points being resolved in unsatisfactory manners. But wasn't it your point that we should be objective in this debate? So, your opinion on the story doesn't matter. Alright then. Another complaint that's a bit more objective is the fact that this game needed to fully revamp the combat system. A sequel should seek to make the gameplay maybe not completely different, but better than its predecessor at least. But the combat system was revamped. New runic attacks, more enemy and boss variety. I would argue this game has a much better combat system. At the very least, better than 2016's. I do agree with you on the fact that it has improved, but I would say it has not changed nearly enough to be consistently fun throughout the game. Boss fights are definitely a highlight of this system, but the generic mob fights are lowlight? Is that a term? Probably not.
Oh, it actually is a word. Well, I'll be...
Dang.
You win this one.
Blockhead.
Well, I am a genius. Even words I make up are real. Kill me.
Later.
We have fun here. Anyhow, oh, crud. We're ready, over 10 minutes. Judge, pass your verdict.
Hey, what about Stray? Let me talk about...
Wait, we have a judge? Huh, well, guess so. Well, you reach a verdict yet?
Wait!
Please, don't let Spamton keep you from delivering your objectively true verdict.
Stray sweep for the win!
Hoochie mama.
Put these foolish ambitions to rest.